Hi everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'm working in the front garden and I want to show you what I do in order to prepare it for the winter. What I want to do this year is a top-down approach. That means I will be working on the plants first and see what needs pruning, and then I will check the bottom and the soil for weeds and other things. Plant number one is this Japanese yew. I want this plant to grow larger than it is at the moment. However, you can see it has these long new shoots coming out everywhere, all around. And in order to keep it compact, I will prune those back. For that, I will use my secateurs, which you may know from other videos, and I'll just do a very light prune going all the way around so it stays in a certain shape. The cuts I do here are very simple. I just shorten this long shoot somewhere about here where I think it's right and it fits in the picture. The next plant is this boxwood here, which I will trim back a little bit to bring it back into shape. Looking closer at this boxwood, you can kind of see where the original shape was. It's about somewhere here, and anything that is further away from the plant than this, so that has grown out, is new growth. And this is a little bit too much because we want to keep a certain compact shape, even though I do also want this boxwood to grow larger. But it needs a pruning back, and what I will prune is just all these shoots you can see here that are clearly just too long looking at the overall picture of this plant. For pruning the boxwoods, I use my shears, which are really ideal for those type of plants because these plants have very soft, thin branches and they can easily be cut with those. The way to work with these shears is best by starting at the top, and I'll do one cut, like so, and this gives me a reference. So this is basically the height I want for this boxwood. And then I will just work my way around towards the sides. What I do when working my way down on the sides, I flip the shears around, because that's easier to work down towards the bottom. When cutting plants like boxwood that have small leaves, you can see that the ground, of course, is becoming kind of messy. One way to avoid that is to put a tarpaulin or a piece of plastic sheet around the plant before you cut, so everything can fall onto that. The reason I didn't do that is because I need to weed anyway, and also I will get the leaf blower out to clean the ground at the end. Now let's move on to the next plants. These are the Japanese hollies, so they're very similar to boxwood, and you can see they do not grow as vigorously as the boxwood do. And here I will just trim back single branches, you see, like those two sticking up that are clearly a little bit out of the picture looking at the overall plant. Japanese holly grows very slowly, and this is why I usually, if I prune them at all, just prune them a tiny little bit, so really just to bring them back into shape. This Japanese holly here doesn't really need pruning, maybe just here and here. That's enough, it has quite a nice shape. However, what I will do, you can see that this branch is coming out really low down here. And I was thinking of cutting it off, or alternatively, this is what I will try. I will just try to put that back in and hope that it stays up and see what happens, just like so. So this is not ideal how this looks here, but we'll see. Maybe there will be more growth maybe, and it will fill in. So let's see how that, if that stays like that, and otherwise it can always be cut off. Moving on to the Japanese white pine, you can see here growing behind the rock. So this white pine should not really be pruned yet. That's because we want it to grow larger, but it needs cleaning out. And this is something I do with evergreens, typically in autumn time. You can see here, looking closer, that the needles are starting to die back. These are needles from 2 to 3 years ago, and in autumn time they start to become brown or yellowish and start to fall off. And this can, if this is not cleaned out, congest the tree. You see here the old needles are just stuck on the still fresh ones, and this is not good, and this is why I clean that out. So in order to do that, I basically just go along the branches in growing direction and pull off the dead needles. In this section we have an English yew. The English yew has a finer needle structure, and so it looks a bit more compact also than the Japanese yew. And this is why I will this year for the first time try to prune it with the shears like I used for the boxwood. Here we have 3 Japanese hollies, and those, like I did for the other ones, they will just get a few cuts to bring them back into shape, but nothing major. This is a red pine, and here I will also clean out the needles like I did on the Japanese white pine. And this red pine has a very low branch down here, which I will most likely cut this year. I think it's time for that one to go. So certain branches are actually too thick to cut it with the shears, and you can hear that on the cutting sound. This is why these, you see they're thicker. I'm cutting with the secateurs because the shears are not really made for thick branches. This red pine has this low branch here and another very low one right there, and you see this is right above ground level. And this year I will cut this one off just with the secateurs right next to the trunk. Like so. That one here I will still leave for this year, but probably next year this is also gonna go. Then moving on towards the last section of this area, we have 2 Japanese hollies right here, which do not really need a lot of pruning. That second one here in the picture now needs a little bit of cutting. And then we have another Japanese white pine. Here I will also just remove the dead needles like I did on the other one. And then back here we have azaleas, Japanese azaleas. Those are the ones that were planted this spring and they have grown really well. And I will just check if there's any remains of dead dried blossoms in there and just clean them out a little bit by just shaking them with my hands, that's all. Then I wanted to show you this. Look at our house wall. Do you see all these black dots on there that are moving? Those are ladybugs. And it's so warm at the moment. We have about 20-21 degrees centigrade during the day. That's between 68 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So these ladybugs are just everywhere. I'm not quite sure where they're coming from, but we did have that in previous years. That suddenly, if it's really warm in autumn, they just come out of nowhere and try to live in our house. So on these azaleas after blooming, I could not get off the dead blossoms. I have not seen this on any cultivars we have so far. They were just holding on to the plant so much that it was not possible to just break them off without damaging the plant. And this is why I didn't remove them. And so I'm just now checking and just going through with my fingers like that to see if there's any dead leaves still on there from the blossoms. It doesn't look like it, a little bit like here, in order to not to congest the plant with dead plant material. So this is what I'm just doing on those, and then we're done with pruning in this area, and then I will move on to the ground and just show you what I check for there. As you may know from my videos, we try to encourage moss growth everywhere in the garden, and moss needs to be kept weed free and also free of debris. So what I will do now here is to go through, check what weeds are left. I've weeded this area just recently, and then at the end I will also leaf blow the area to keep it clean. A few weeds that are left are those here, and they do tend to seed out. They come, however, out easily from the soil, as you see with the roots. That's important. What is a bit of an issue this year is clover. You can see we've had so many areas in the garden where we had excessive growth of clover, and they root really deeply, so I need to get my weed removal tool to get them out properly. The tool I'm using looks like that. With this fork bit you can grab the weed, and then with this bit here you can lift it out. I've shown you that in previous videos. And so I will work my way through this area trying to lift the clover out as good as possible. You see they have quite, even a piece broke off, they have quite large roots actually. And also the problem with these is they seed themselves out so much, so several times during the season, and this is why then there are areas where they just grow everywhere. You see here the seed pods. leaf blower bit at the end is always the most fun, I find. I only do leaf blowing on moss overgrown areas when the conditions are right. That means in summer when it's too dry, I do not leaf blow over the moss because it may just blow away. In autumn we do get a lot of rain usually, and the ground is then moist and the moss is attached properly. This is why you saw me go over just with the leaf blower. I even blew away some of the cut off pieces that I just left on the ground. And that brings me to the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye!